What's going on, jumpers? This tutorial is going to cover the AS toad. I'm going to give you all the main tips, things to avoid, and an actual progression to learn this skill. The AS toad cross is a behind the knees placement with one hand and a toad placement with the other hand where the toad arm crosses underneath the leg on the opposite side of your body. And if your goal is to be an efficient jumper, to continually level up your skills over time, this is the tutorial for you. All right, let's get into it. For doing this skill, you should definitely be able to do an AS cross and a toad cross. And also being able to do all variations of an EB toad will be very useful and will help you learn the skill, but it's not necessary before trying the AS toad. The AS toad is a very interesting skill because you can enter it and exit it in a lot of different ways. Before we get into all those details, just a heads up that you should go check out Nateflix over on my website. I've got over 400 freestyle combos for you to try out with a bunch of different skills, including the AS toad, and it's completely free forever. It'll be on my website over at natekg.com/Nateflix. Going back to the AS toad, we're gonna keep this super simple and just go through all of the entries, the ways to get into this skill first. We're gonna start with a basic swing into the AS toad. This is technically a basic swing, but you will be transitioning one hand into the AS position as you do the swing. You wanna squat down and have the hand that is farther away from you go behind your knees during the swing. There are different styles to do this skill, but ideally you wanna stay as upright as possible during the swing, dragging the rope across the ground and avoiding any excessive slapping. And then as the rope travels up, you enter the toad placement with your other hand. Now you can also do a toad swing as you begin this skill. This follows the same tips as the basic swing entry, but you'll lift your leg as the rope comes down towards the ground and then place your hand in a toad position to make this a toad swing. You wanna make sure that you lift the leg that's on the same side as the swing, and you can put your foot back down as soon as the rope has passed underneath. This way you're set up to jump during the next revolution. And again, enter the swing very gently so the rope does not smack the ground. And the last entry is an AS dive. AS dive is a colloquial term. Technically, this is just an open single and then immediately shifting one hand behind your knees. You need to start sinking into a jump rope squat position as soon as you land the single under that comes before the AS toad. Then transition your hand behind your knees as the rope passes under your feet during the single. Both hands should then keep turning the rope as you continue and enter the toad placement. Regardless of the way you enter the skill, you want to make sure the rope is traveling vertically as you jump the AS toad cross. Believe it or not, it can actually be pretty easy to miss the actual jump in the AS toad position, so make sure that you do in fact bring the rope around under both feet while your hands are crossed in this placement. Make sure that your hands do keep turning and continue to help the rope around even when they're restricted. Now that we've talked about how to get into this skill, let's talk about how to get out of it. There's also 3 ways to get out of the AS toad. The first is by exiting directly to an open single. You want to move the hand that's in the AS position behind both knees as soon as the rope passes under your feet. Then bring both hands back to a neutral, open position as the rope comes up by your face. You can also do a toad swing out of this skill. This follows a very similar movement as the previous exit, but we keep our toad hand restricted and rise up onto one leg for a full toad swing. There's a lot of different ways that you could continue on from this toad swing. Here I've showed you the main strict variation that finishes in an open toe catch for the sake of keeping it simple. But if you're doing a toad swing exit, you're most likely gonna finish in a regular toad cross. Now the last exit is an AS swing. After you jump the AS toad, if you hold your hand behind your knees and wait for the rope to pass overhead, you can come out of the toad placement by lifting your leg and doing an AS swing. You really want to make sure that you're waiting and allowing the rope to pass all the way around your leg as you exit the toad placement so you can get out of that skill very cleanly. All right, let's talk about what to avoid during the AS toad. The first is to not let the rope slap the ground really hard. This is primarily as you enter the skill, but you also don't want it to slap when you're actually jumping in the crossed placement. You want to avoid exiting this skill too soon. Regardless of the exit you're doing, Moving your hands out of position too soon will most likely cause the rope to catch your feet. You also don't want to stand up too much during this cross. If you don't do a jump rope squat for this skill, it's going to be very hard to get your hands in the correct placement. You also want to avoid only practicing one version of this skill. While you'll definitely have your favorite and your most comfortable version that you like to do, you absolutely want to try all variations and be able to do pretty much all of them. This skill can be used in a lot of different combos, and you really want to set yourself up for the most options by training all of the entries and exits. Keep in mind, this means on both sides of your body as well. Your less dominant side may take longer to learn, but you should practice it just as much as your dominant side, if not more. Now that we've covered the details of this skill, let's talk about how to practice it correctly. The first step is to practice each entry into an AS toed toe catch. You want to do at least several reps of each of these three options. I'd recommend doing at least 5 reps of the basic swing to the AS toed catch, then 5 reps of the toed swing entry, and then 5 reps of the AS dive entry, and then repeat until each of these feels very comfortable. Once you've got that down, the next step will be to do a swing into an AS toed, hold the position for an AS toed toe catch after that. Make sure you do this enough to control the rope and make it go underneath your toes. It's really important that the rope can go under your toes and catch, because that is a good sign that you are moving the rope correctly. Once you feel good with that, we're gonna start working on the exits for this skill. So the next step will be to do a basic swing into an AS toed and then exit that into an open single. It's very important to get this one down first before you progress onto the other exits. From there, the next step is to do a basic swing into an AS toed cross, then do an AS swing coming out of it, and then finish in an open single. Really pay attention to the difference with this progression. You really need to wait for that rope to come all the way around before you exit into the AS swing. Once that feels good, you can move on to the final progression, which is to do a basic swing into the AS toed, and then a toed swing out of that, finishing in an open single. This is the last progression to learn in the core pieces of this skill, but once you're able to do this, you can loop back through and test out all of the combinations of entries and exits and find the ones that you like the best. If this tutorial helped you learn the AS toed, send it off to a friend that you think might also enjoy it. If you want more tutorials, make sure that you subscribe to the channel, because there are a lot more of tutorials coming in the future. If you have any questions at all, just leave a comment down below or hit me up over on Instagram at Nate_KG. I'll see you in the next tutorial.